Today's video is basically going to be a video version of me expanding on a blog post I wrote. I wrote a blog post called Just Release It Already, and that's what the title of this video is going to be. And I wanted to go through what I wrote in that post because I think it's useful as composers, as musicians. I also want to expand on some stuff and talk a little bit about some other stuff in there. If you haven't checked out my blog, it's blog.musicbyisj.com. I'll put a link in the description and I'll put it right up here so that you can see it. I write there every day-ish. I've been trying to do it every day for almost a year, and I have gotten almost every day a post. So go check it out. I write a whole bunch of different stuff about music, some not so much about music, but most of it's about music or writing music or something like that. Also, I do want to apologize. I have my AC unit on, so I apologize if there's any excess like background noise. I know you should be able to hear it with this microphone because it picks up a lot, but hopefully it's not too distracting. All right, let's get in the video. Hey, I'm Schanno Johnson. If you don't know me, I'm a musician, composer, producer, and I make videos about all that fun stuff: music, music composition, music production. So make sure you hit that subscribe button to see videos like this in the future. So today we're talking about releasing music, and the blog post is titled Just Release It Already. I wrote it right before my song Powerless came out. Go check it out. Spotify, Bandcamp, Tidal, Apple Music, all the good places. I'll put a link in the description. And it's basically about writing music. Sometimes I get caught up in making everything perfect, right? You want everything to sound exactly perfect, and you want to get rid of any tiny mistakes, and you want to be able to edit lots of stuff and go back and change stuff and really make sure that everything is super perfect. But I think when you're releasing something, part of releasing music is deciding when it's done. Deciding when a piece of music is done, I think, is an important step and an important skill, kind of, in a lot of ways, to learn as a composer or producer, musician in any way, right? You're deciding when a recording is finished, deciding when a take is good, deciding when a piece of music is ready to be released, ready to be performed, deciding when your sheet music looks good enough to send to the players. And I think it's a skill that often musicians sort of don't think about, especially new musicians don't think about, because you don't practice it. If you're writing a piece of music for a class, let's say in a composition class, and you have a deadline, sure, yeah, you have to decide when it's done, but that's not really the same as you choosing for it to be done for yourself, right? If you're releasing this piece of music yourself, you have to decide when it's done, and you are the only person making that decision. But if you're doing it for a class or whatever it is, it doesn't matter when you decide. It has to be done then. You gotta finish something. And I think often if you're making your own music or releasing your own music, you sometimes can get more easily caught up in, oh, maybe I should go back and fix this one measure. Maybe I should, lower the filter in that one section so it starts slightly lower, or maybe I should adjust this one hairpin so it's slightly more in line, or whatever tiny little detail it is. I think sometimes that can prevent you from actually finishing music and actually releasing music. This whole idea is one of the reasons why I am a huge fan of Andrew Huang as a composer and as a producer and as a YouTuber. Is he releases so much music that he almost doesn't give himself time to have that thought of, maybe I should go back and change this, maybe I should go back and do this. I have no idea what goes on in his thought process, but if I were to imagine myself in that scenario, that's how I'd be thinking about it. I'd be thinking, okay, whatever, this is what I'm doing, I'm gonna keep going. I did read in an interview once, he said that he tries never to second guess a musical decision, and I like that attitude a whole lot. Personally, I second guess stuff a lot, and it sometimes prevents me from releasing as much music as I would like to, because I'm so into this mentality of, oh, is that perfect? And I mean, a lot of the time I don't think those changes are going to be big enough to be noticeable by a listener. Even if that listener is a musician, maybe they'll be noticed by, the most well-known mixing engineer, or the most well-known mastering engineers, or the most well-known electronic producers in that exact subgenre that you're writing in. But to a general audience, I think a lot of that won't be noticeable. And even to a general audience of musicians that are fairly skilled in their craft, a lot of that I think might not be noticeable because they're not hearing it 300 times like you are. Now, to some extent, an attention to detail is a very, very good thing. But I think if you let that attention to detail prevent you from releasing music, it then no longer becomes a good thing. It becomes something that's inhibiting you from making more music, from moving on, from actually publicly putting out this music that you're creating, and from finishing pieces of music. Something to remember when making music and releasing it is you will always be able to go back in the future and find stuff that you would change or that you would do differently. And I think that's actually a good thing rather than thinking, oh, I should have changed it then. If I go back and listen to my first album, Expanding an Electric Symphony, go check it out. I'm really proud of it as a piece of work, but I do hear a lot of production stuff that I would change. Compositionally, I don't hear a whole lot of stuff that I would change, honestly. I'm really proud of that. But music production-wise, I would tweak some of the synths a little bit. I'd tweak some of the effects I have. I'd tweak where the effects are and all that stuff. And yeah, I've learned a lot about music production in the past, 2-3 years since it came out. I've learned a lot about music production since that piece of music was released, and I should be able to listen to it and want to go back and change stuff. I like to think of that as a good thing. That means that I've learned something. Does it mean that at that point in time I didn't know something that maybe would have been helpful? Sure, yeah. But at the same time, I'll never be able to go back in time and give myself that information that I know now. And that's just how it is, honestly. What I do to combat this sort of attitude in myself is I try to get the piece of music to somewhere where I am proud of it, where I'm okay with people listening to it. And I know that's pretty vague, but what I mean by that is I kind of get it to a good enough level. Like, I know that sounds kind of silly, like I don't want my music to just be good enough, but I get it to a point where I'm proud of the work I put in, I'm proud of how it sounds, and I'd be happy to share that with people, and I'd be happy to show it to people. I've gotten it as good as I can make it without spending another, 3 months every day tweaking it and looking up stuff about music production and looking up stuff about composition and looking up stuff about mixing and mastering and all this stuff, right? I get it to a point where I'm proud of it, I'm happy with it, and I try and get it to a point where I don't really think I can make it much better easily, right? Get it to the point where the next few steps are a real slog of you have to learn a lot more information, you have to learn a lot more techniques, you have to learn just a lot of new stuff in order to get it to that next level. Once you get it there, I think that's a pretty good place to stop and release it. And let's be honest, like I said before, with this attitude of get it somewhere where you're proud of it, where you're happy with it, where you think it's pretty good, that means that in 3 years, when you come back and listen to it, when you check out your old music, you're probably going to find stuff that you'd change. But let's be honest, that would probably happen anyways. I don't think of a time where I've been so proud of a piece of music that 5 years later, I haven't looked back on it and said, maybe I'd do this differently. Every single piece of music I've written, at least, 3 or more years ago, I look back on it and I see stuff that I'd change. Because of course I do. Like, I've learned so much about music as a craft. I've learned so much about writing music, about music notation, about different styles of music, about music history, about all of these things in music, about music performance and whatever, music production. I've learned so many things about all of these different categories that of course I'm going to look back at those and think there's stuff that I could change. That's a good thing. It does mean that when you release it, you're going to release it with that knowledge that in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years or whatever, I'm going to look back on this and think of stuff that I could have changed. But so what? Who cares? You're not 10 years from now you are you now. So just release it already. Just get it to a point you're proud of and release it. All right, that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something about music. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace.